Hey, how are you? This is Painting Class 7, so if you want to paint along with me, go to my website, search Painting Class 7, pull the image onto your desktop, print it out, and trace the drawing with a black charcoal pencil. Press it onto your painting surface, and you're ready to get started. Got a little paint thinner on my brush, and I'm going to go ahead and just put a little color right on that lemon, just to get started. And then maybe I'll wash a little of the gray color on this board down here. I'm just going to put color around and see what happens. Now I am using an oil paint. A couple of people have asked me. I'm using an oil paint, and this is an acrylic gesso on the board. And it doesn't dry to the touch quickly, but it dries enough that you can work on it, especially if you use a little paint thinner. And so that's what I like to do. I like to get a little color on here, and then I'll mix up a little color for the board, that the lemon, and this is a daffodil, and it hasn't bloomed yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and mix up kind of a gray, maybe a warm gray with hints of brown for this board here. And I'll bring this right down on the palette. A little bit of yellow, a little Van Dyke brown, some white, and maybe a little black. That's something that I can kind of get started with this. And I'm just basically coloring in around the lemon, around this. I don't really want to get the paint on that, where those daffodil, where the daffodil is, because it'd just be hard to go over it. So I'll put a little more paint thinner on my brush and just wash this in. And maybe I'll use a little bit of board color, this kind of gray color, just to flatten that out a little bit, flatten the yellow out a little bit. And maybe if we look down here, we've got kind of a red right on it's where the board has been dragged. This is an old board. This board is over 150 years old. I built a church altar out of this wood, and this is just a piece that I had left over. So we'll go and grab a little bit of red and a little Van Dyke brown back down here on the palette. A little bit of yellow in here, a tiny bit more red, a little bit more yellow, and I'll just put a little bit of color in there. Sometimes that makes the difference. I put a little black on the brush, and I'll just throw some of that around, and then I'll move it. There was a nail here. You can see there was an old nail on the board right here. Oh, you can see that. See that? I pulled that nail out. And the nail oxidizes in the wood and turns it black. And let's throw the shadow on. Shadow behind the lemon. And I'll grab a dry brush and move some of that around. And the wall in the back has kind of a blue cast. So I'll throw a little bit of blue. I've come down here, I've added a little cerulean blue to the gray that I was using to make the board. And it's not quite what I wanted. But I'll put, ooh, that's really not what I want. I'm going to wash that off with just a dry brush, a clean brush, and some paint thinner. And then I'll put white right on top of that, and maybe that'll get me there. I'm going to put a little blue in the white. Maybe that'll work. And just, I think it'll be fun to put the green in there, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. A little bit of green, and I'm not just going to put the permanent green right from the tube. I'll take a little of the permanent green, and I'll grab some of that board color, and maybe a little white, and knock that color down a little bit. Throw in a little bit of yellow. We can start with that and see what happens. I think there's a bit of blue in that green, so I'll have to go back to it. You look down here at the photograph. So I'll come back down and grab a little bit of this cerulean blue. I've got a little black on the brush. It's a very dark gray actually, it's not quite black. And now I'm going to work a little bit more on this lemon. I've got a little yellow and red and Van Dyke brown mixed up. And this is pure yellow right here. And now I want to really work on that board. The oil paint is kind of absorbed into the surface, and it's nice because you can feel that the paint now pulls off the brush. Now I can start to take a few of these greens that I had mixed up and just place them on the lemon, and I'll move them around a bit. I want a little bit more of a darker color in the lemon over here. And there's a little bit of light over here, maybe that helps out a bit. Just little bits of light on the edge of it. And there's a real dark spot. It's hard to get. You know, this spot right here. Oops, wasn't really looking at the painting there. I'm working on this area. And there's a lot of light right here. And right there. And now I'm gonna go back and see what I can do with those daffodils. And I'm trying to get sort of a yellowy green. See what I have here on the brush. Take a look down here. I don't know if it's quite right, but something to start with. And maybe on the back of the stem here. And now I'm thinking if I can get some darks here and start to create a shadow, that might help to pop this off of the surface of this board. And if I go down here, I want to get a few variations of gray and maybe try to get a few blues in here and make this more interesting in the painting. I'm down here trying to come up with a warm color to try to deal with this over here. It's a little harsh, but I want something more than what was happening. And maybe I'll just move that around a little bit. I'll just take a little white and push that around in there too. Okay, so now I'm just going to, I want to put a lot of white in this. This is a wall here. And I'm liking the, the abstract aspect of it, this geometrical thing that's happening with the wall and then just the plane of the board. Maybe just a little bit more white right here. Sometimes it's fun just to put a lot of paint on there and let the painting have a little bit of texture. And now I want to just work on that board a little bit. So, like over here on the photograph, it's kind of darker. So maybe that will help out if I get that a little bit darker. Something like that. Just a little more black. And a little bit of that white, just to make some grays. And we'll put that nail hole back there. So we have this hole from a nail. And maybe we can just, that looks good. Board's a little bit darker up here and up here. And then I just want to lighten up the buds of the bud I should say, of the daffodil there. Just make it pop. I'm going to add a little white to my green that I have mixed up. And I'm going to put a highlight there. This is kind of fun. Maybe it'll start to really jump off the panel here, or the canvas. Well, it's actually a panel. Did that help out? Let's see. I like to step away from the painting as I'm working. And maybe a bit back here. And then a very light green, just green and white mixed up. Let's bring the thing over here. It's a really light green. Throw that in right here. Maybe I can just push this black spot around here. And if I could just get a little bit darker at the bottom of that lemon, that might really pop the lemon. So let's grab some black, and I'm taking the black, but I knock it down a little bit so it's not pure black. It's kind of a dark gray. Sometimes pick up a little Van Dyke brown. And then we'll just drop that in there. The shadow is always darker, like right at the base of the lemon, or the object, I should say. And this shadow is not quite right. I have to work on that a little bit, but I'm almost there. Let's see. Just grab a little white. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, if we look at the shadow here, it's straight. If we look at my shadow, it's kind of coming down. So maybe if I could just cut that. I'm not going to have an easy time with this, I don't think. Let's see. I need another kind of a clean brush. I think I might just leave it. You know what? I'll look at it for a day or two. It's Monday, so I'll look at it for a couple of days and maybe I like it. So we'll just leave it there. Well, I made the painting on Monday, and so now I've had a few days to look at it, and that's kind of my process. I like to look at the painting. Sometimes I'll go back into the painting. This week I made a frame for the painting, and if you paint on thin panels like this, I'll put a link to the video that I made. It's a pretty easy way to make frames. I hope you have a great week. Keep painting, and I'll see you next week.